You woke up today, reached for your phone, and maybe grumbled about how early it felt. You had coffee, heat, a bathroom a few steps away. Now picture the same morning, but it's the year 1320, and you've just opened your eyes as a peasant in an English village. No alarm woke you, the cold did. Your back already aches before you've stood up, and the day in front of you would break a modern adult in half before lunch. You think you're tough. You've done hard workouts, long shifts, rough weeks. None of it would matter here. So here's the real question. If you were dropped into a single ordinary day in a peasant's life, what would actually take you down first? Let's walk through it hour by hour and find out. The work would break you. It starts before sunrise, and you don't get a choice. As a peasant, you didn't fully own your time. Under the manor system, much of your week belonged to the lord whose land you lived on. Several days a week you worked his fields for free, what they called week work, before you could even touch your own strip of land. And the work was not the gym. It was dragging a wooden plow through heavy wet soil behind an ox, cutting an entire field of grain by hand with a curved blade, bent double for hours, hauling, digging, lifting from first light until you couldn't see anymore. A day of medieval farm labor could burn through calories at a rate most modern bodies have never touched. Your smooth, uncalloused hands would be shredded raw inside an hour. Your back would seize by midday. And quitting early was not on the table. The work set the pace. And the pace did not care about you. The food would shock you, so you're starving by midday. Here's what's waiting. Pottage. A thick, gray stew of grains, beans, and whatever vegetables were around, simmering in one pot over the fire. Eaten again and again, day after day after day. With it, dark, heavy bread, coarse enough to wear down your teeth, nothing like the soft loaf you know. Meat, rarely. A bit of preserved pork if you were lucky, mostly saved for the animals you couldn't afford to eat. No sugar, no spice you didn't grow, no variety, just the same heavy plain fuel over and over, never quite enough of it. A modern stomach, trained on flavor and abundance, would revolt within days, and in a bad year, even the pottage ran thin. The drink isn't what you think. Now, you've probably heard that medieval people drank ale instead of water because the water would kill them. That's mostly a myth, and the truth is more interesting. People drank water too, from streams and wells. But ale, weak, low-alcohol ale, was everywhere because it was basically liquid food. It packed in calories and nutrients a body doing that much labor desperately needed, and the brewing made it safer than a dirty town ditch. So you'd be drinking a thin, sour, cloudy ale all day, even the children, not to get drunk, but to survive. The real danger wasn't water itself. It was what got into it. And that brings us to the thing that would most likely actually kill you. The thing that would kill you. Here is the part that modern people cannot feel in their bones because we've forgotten what it was like. There was no medicine. None that worked the way you're used to. Catch a scratch on a rusty tool while you work, and there are no antibiotics. That small cut can go septic, and within a week, you could be dead from an infection a single modern pill would crush today. Drink from the wrong water, and dysentery, what they called the flux, could empty your body out and end you in days. In the marshy parts of England, a disease they called the egg, which we now know was malaria, returned every year to shake people apart with fever. A toothache had no real cure but pulling the tooth out, awake, with no painkiller. You live one harvest accident, one bad fever, one infected blister away from the end, every single day, with nothing but herbs and prayer between you and it. That is the day you'd be walking into, and you wouldn't even know which ordinary thing was the dangerous one. And you still owed everyone. And here's the cruelty stacked on top. After all of that, after the labor and the hunger and the risk, you didn't even keep what you grew. The church took 1/10 of everything you produced, the tithe, off the top. The Lord took his rent and his dues. You broke your body all year, and a large share was carried away before you ever fed your own family, which meant you lived with almost no cushion. One failed harvest, one wet summer that rotted the grain in the fields, and there was nothing left to fall back on. This actually happened. Between 1315 and 1317, rain wrecked harvest after harvest across northern Europe in what's now called the Great Famine, and people starved by the millions. You wouldn't just be working harder than you've ever worked. You'd be doing it while standing one bad week away from starvation. The twist, it's you who's soft. So by now you're picturing a life of pure, grinding misery. But here's the part that flips it. The reason you wouldn't survive isn't that they were miserable, suffering wretches. It's that they were tougher than you in ways the modern world has erased. They had things you don't. The church calendar was stuffed with feast days and saints' days when work was forbidden, so the year came broken up by real stretches of rest in a way that might surprise you. There were festivals, dancing, ale, weddings, a tight village that fed you when you were down because tomorrow it might be them. And that famous statistic that people only lived to about 30, that number is dragged down by babies and small children dying. If you survived childhood, you had a real shot at reaching your 50s or 60s. So the truth is gentler and harder at the same time. You wouldn't survive their day because they were built by a life of labor and risk you have never once faced. The softness is yours, not theirs. Now, in fairness, none of this was one single experience. A peasant in rich southern farmland lived very differently from one scratching at thin northern soil, and a good decade looked nothing like a plague year. Some of what we say about their feast days and their lifespans is pieced together from patchy records and still argued over by historians. The medieval world was not one place. It was 1,000 hard, local lives that rarely got written down at all. So go back to this morning. The snooze button, the hot shower, the food that appears whenever you want it, and the little pills in the cabinet that quietly keep you alive. You wouldn't last a single day in 1320, and that's worth sitting with, because the only reason is the wall of comfort and medicine that was built up over the centuries between you and them. But flip it around one last time. Drop that peasant into your life with your screens, your stillness, your strange loneliness, and they might tell you that you're the one barely surviving. You just can't feel it. They wouldn't last a day in your world either. They'd just be shocked at how soft a human was allowed to become and how little, with everything, we still seem to have.